Welcome to PaddyCast. On this episode, we have Northern Ireland's record striker and minefield manager, David Healy. So, how are you, David?
Not too bad, Paddy. Probably like the majority of people in Northern Ireland, especially sports people, we're itching to get back. But also in the back of our mind that we're also understanding of the terrible pandemic that we're in, the unforeseen times that nobody foreseen before Christmas when this sort of come upon us. So understanding of that, but you know yourself, Paddy, when sports people they get themselves into a routine, they want to go and compete, they want to go and train, they want to go and play. So that's been difficult.
Yeah. So tell us about obviously you're a manager at the minute, but tell us like from your early days, like playing amateur football, right through until like how you became professional.
Younger, growing up, for those who don't know, I grew up in a sleepy little village down in Killaloe, County Down. People used to joke and say the best thing that ever came out of Killaloe was the road to Downpatrick or the road to Cumber. But again, for me, given the opportunity, all I wanted to do, play with your mates in the on the fields and the showgrounds, the council pitches down in Killaloe. And then to move on from playing for Killaloe at an early age group, moving on to Crossgar Youth Club, who gave me an incredible sort of 2-3 years there of learning. And then when I got to sort of 11, 12, I moved to Lisburn Youth, who were an incredible team. We had 7 full internationals in the same age group, the Gareth McCauley, Grant McCann, myself, Andy Smith, Gary Hamilton, Aaron Hughes. We had an incredible age group. So to go on and not only have 4 or 5 years with them at Lisburn Youth, we didn't lose very many games as the team the team mentioned there, that we all went on and had decent careers, and there was all the good players. So early stages, Killaloe, Crossgar, Lisburn Youth, and all the coaches, all the volunteers. These guys weren't sort of paid at times to come, but they always went out of their way to make sure that me and the rest of the boys were given enough training to go and play decent games on a Saturday.
And did see from like the likes of Lisburn Youth, did you then go into the Irish League, or did you go straight across the water?
No, I was again. There was an old scout who unfortunately passed away a number of years ago, Eddie Coulter. His son now, Tony, he still runs sort of the Northern Irish side of the Man United School of Excellence. And Eddie had seen me playing from 11, 12, 13 at Lisburn Youth. I went to Man United on trials, and even growing up then, there was no sort of Cliftonville academies, Linfield academies. It was sort of a lot more boys clubs. And then over the years, the academies have sort of maybe taken over a little bit, because there's a lot of money now involved in some of the youth players who maybe get transferred or moved to England or Scotland. So Irish League academies now have sort of taken over. The boys clubs have sort of stepped aside, but again, there's numerous boys clubs out there at the minute who still create and sort of manufacture their own young talent, who then move on to the Irish Premier League clubs, academies.
See the likes, like obviously playing like for amateur league, and then you're obviously in the professional football. Like, what's the kind of difference in play? Is there a big jump?
Again, I actually played 6 times for Killaloe in the amateur league, and you're basically playing against men in the bars that you sort of see coming out, these amateur league players. So it was a good grounding for me that at 16 I was already sort of prepared that I'd played sort of men's football before I actually went to
the level.
But you always realize it didn't really matter how good you were then, because when you played in the amateur league, everybody wanted a good boot at you, to be honest. And thankfully I only played 6 times for Killaloe, but again, it was something that I always wanted to do. So it prepared me sort of physically, mentally to understand that then the challenges when you get a little bit older, you need to actually get stronger, fitter. You need to be improving all the time. And, to step up, as you say, amateur football, youth football into, basically the Lions Den when I went to Man United
Yeah.
at 16. There was so many good players from
And
England, Scotland, Wales, etc.
did the training all differ as well? Was the training much tougher?
Training was tougher. Again, I went over. I went over to Man United, and I always remember looking at my first. You sort of get weighed in, and your first year as an apprentice, and I was like 59, 60 kilos. Probably would you nearly box that, Paddy. But so I was like 50, and again, which was as a footballer developing, I still had a lot of growth in me. I needed to sort of maximise, my potential to get me stronger and fitter. And we were put on straight away as soon as we went over. We put on the fitness program, strength program.
Yeah.
Probably not even to the extent now where sports science is completely taken over all sports. But football them days, we had probably one or two people at Man United, and to me, Man United was the biggest club and the best opportunities for me. But the changes now, the staff, you only have to watch some of these sort of football programs, the Man Cities, the Bus, the 30, 40 staff now basically looking after a team of 25 players.
Like, you play for a lot of teams across the water. Did you? Who would you say would have been the best manager you play under?
Best manager, again, probably fortunate to play for some really good managers. The first one, and I would never sort of, even though as a young player, Sir Alex Ferguson was always the manager, the main man at Man United. And he always made me feel welcome, my parents feel welcome, anytime that we were ever at Old Trafford and watching games or in and around the training ground. But I don't really ever class myself as ever being a first team player at Man United. I was a younger player. I went out on loan to Port Vale. I came back. I was itching for probably more first team football, which we knew at the time I probably wasn't going to get at United. So, although Alex Ferguson was brilliant for me as a manager, especially a young player, David Moyes, Walter Smith, Roy Keane, Craig Brown. I was fortunate enough that Michael O'Neill at Northern Ireland, some really, really good managers that, even to now, you sort of take a lot from them.
I think, like, obviously you're a manager now yourself. Like, being around those kind of names, like, would you say you've learned stuff off them and you're putting it into your own game at the minute?
Yes and no, Paddy. There's other things again, like you specifically. I'm sure there was a coach who tried to give you different opportunities, what way to box and who you were going to box against and who you were going to fight. There's different sort of ways. There's different things that you're going to take off all coaches and different opinions and whatever else. And some things you would do for you that is going to be good for you, and then there's going to be some of the things some of the other managers you might sort of think, well, that's not really the way I would want to do it, so I won't do that. So you always take sort of notes in your sort of your memories that you sort of think, well, how would I, as a player, how would I want to be treated first and foremost by your manager? And so again, I try and respect all the players. Sometimes it can be, even in the Irish League, it can be challenging at times with leaving players out and moving people on and dropping people and whatever else. I understand and I always say to players, I understand all the situations because I've been in the situation as a player, and me as a manager, I try and make sure that we soften the blow. So at least if I need you to come off the bench, that you're going to be mentally, physically ready to go. And then maybe if you don't play in that game, next game that don't burn bridges with you, where I throw you out of the team and don't play you for 2, 3, 4 months, and then all of a sudden I'm coming patting you in the back saying because I need you. The happy medium, leaving somebody out, dropping somebody, having a pop at somebody after the game or at half time, but also on the understanding and the realisation that I'm going to need you somewhere along the line here.
Yeah. When you talk about that, I could never picture you being an angry man.
No.
You always seem like just, I don't know, like, never angry.
No, again, Paddy, and again, that's probably, I come into the job at Linfield, and there was probably some question marks along. Is he too nice to be a manager? Is he too nice? Is he just a coach? Is he? But again, Paddy, you know probably better than most. If you're a sports person, you have a steely, whether it's a demeanour which everybody can see,
Yeah.
where it's a front, or you have a steely. You know, I wouldn't class you as sort of saying, you know, you're a big tough man and whatever else, and you're going to go out and. But deep inside, you have a steely fire and a steely,
Of course.
grit inside you. Where I'm thinking, do you know what? If I was fighting you, I'd be sort of thinking, I wouldn't want to be messing with Paddy Barnes, because although he's not luring, he's loud. He's got a steely fire inside him,
Yeah.
and he's got. And I say, people probably, I was probably unexpected to go straight in and sort of manage, because sometimes the press can sort of say, oh, he's a nice guy and whatever else. So
Yeah.
I think after 3 games that I think we lost. I came in and we won the first game, and then we went on a horrible run. And I was on my, I was breaking records left, right, and centre at Linfield for all the wrong reasons. And I let the players know after about 2 or 3 games, and probably from then on, you have to put a marker down to make sure that yeah, I'm going to be a nice guy, and I want everybody to be singing off the same hymn sheet. But there's going to be times where there's going to be possibly a few cups thrown across the dressing room.
Obviously, you're a very prolific player in the North. Like, when you started managing Linfield, did you think like the younger players like looked up to you?
I think again with that, some of them were probably a little bit weary, because I'd never played in the Irish League. I had watched from afar. I'd always sort of kept a good eye on from afar, and I knew the majority of the players over the years in the Irish League. But again, I'd never participated in the league, so I was sort of bringing myself back from probably a more professional environment back into the Irish League. But again, that was something that I wanted to do. I was fortunate at the time that Linfield gave me the opportunity to do that, to go and manage it in my first job. So maybe there was a little bit of worry, or maybe a little bit of fear in the players, to sort of think, well, I wonder what he's going to be like when he adapts into our league. And to be honest, it took me a little bit of time to adapt. There was probably a realisation that some of these players were part-time, some of them had jobs during the day, some of them sort of get a match day on a Saturday, and they maybe done 60, 70 hours work during the week, and they were maybe a little bit leggy or tired. So it took me a little while to sort of understand, the players and the circumstances that each and every one of them were facing during the week.
Now, I want to move into your international career, and I have to mention, obviously, your winning goal against England. So tell me, like, how did that feel? And like, how was the emotion like, what was the emotion like in the change room after the match?
It was surreal, and it's probably still surreal, because England had such a formidable sort of bunch of players at the time, and England, for whatever reason, probably over the last 20, 25 years, every tournament that England go to, it's the golden generation. It's gone. You can't have a golden generation for 20, 25 years, but you don't win anything.
No, that's ridiculous.
So every time we, obviously the England game, they had a phenomenal group of players. The Beckhams, the Rooneys, the Owens, the Ferdinands, etc. And basically we weren't probably in the probably where the Northern Ireland national team is at the minute, where Michael's got them. They were tough to beat at home, tough to beat away. They were very well drilled, very well organised. They had an incredible manager, people like Johnny Evans and Stephen Davis. Sort of leading the line for them. The Northern Ireland team that beat England that night, we had fantastic players playing for us, but we had never really done it on a consistent basis. And we were probably better when we played as underdogs. And again, the England sort of game come at a good time. We were thrashed 4-0 at Old Trafford 8 or 9 months previously, and we always knew that come back to Windsor, we had maybe a small outside chance that we could get a result, but we never, certainly not in my wildest dreams, that beating England. And as you say, beating England at anything, having lived there
Yeah.
for 15, 20 years. They sometimes the overconfidence that sometimes they arrive at, English sports people. So to beat England. And one of the funny things, and I think we were actually probably in a team meeting or in and around lunchtime when we played England. UTV and BBC News come on. Must have been about 1:15 in the day of the game, and we were sort of sitting around having our lunch, probably having a little bit of a bit of banter after lunch, and it showed you the England supporters knocking about sort of Belfast, and typically it goes to the England supporters, having a few pints. Well, what's the score going to be tonight? And all, 5 or 6 people talking. Yeah, we'll win. Yeah, we'll win 5-0. It'll be 4-0. It'll be 6-1. That's too easy for us. So again, maybe sort of that got the players' backs up a little bit, gave us a little bit of sort of an edge that we probably needed. And again, if you play with an edge, sometimes you're not always going to win, but you're always going to make sure that you make a good chance out of it.
Yeah, and as I say, we talk about the England goal, but something was probably more prolific in your career was your hat trick against the great Spanish team.
Again, not in my wildest dreams. And I always sort of again look back at the third goal when we scored, because again we'd come into the Spanish game on the Wednesday having been humped 3-0 off Iceland at Windsor Park on the Saturday. So you're coming into the game on the Wednesday, a little bit negative press sort of knocking about from the Saturday. You come in sort of Wednesday, and I think come the Wednesday night that the players had realised that we'd let ourselves down on the Saturday. So it was an opportunity. And again, you can't even tell any lies and say, yeah, I knew it was one of them I knew we were going to win. I knew we weren't going to. It certainly wasn't, because again with the Spanish team, and they went on to prove in years after that we beat them when they qualified out of the group that we had played them in. They went on and won the European Championship. They went on and won the World Cup, and again went on and won the Euros. So things had changed, and we always sort of joke in Northern Ireland that after that game that Spain had completely changed their personnel. After the game, they changed their whole philosophy of the country, and Northern Ireland were a part of, I think, inventing or creating a new Spanish culture.
Do you think that was all your fault?
It's my fault that Spain went on. I take great responsibility that Spain went on to dominate world football for 4 or 6 years.
Bernard, and that leads me into the next thing I want to talk to you about, your sporting peak and the sporting hit of your career. What would you say would be the highest moment and your lowest moment?
Highest moment, again, I was fortunate to play for as many clubs that I did, and certainly work with the people, coaches, managers, everything else that I work with. Sporting peak for me, there was no greater, and I don't think there's any greater for any sports person in the world to represent your country at whatever level that you're going to represent it in. Yeah, and I know you again, Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, 3 Olympic Games, etc., Paddy. And again, you probably don't see that at the time, how other people are sort of looking at you. And I never ever seen it as a player for Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland have been, obviously you box for, Ireland and whatever else. But again, as a country, as an island of Ireland, north and south and whatever else, Northern Ireland have always punched above their weight with sporting greats. People talk about, your Mary Peters, your Pat Jennings, your George Bests, your boxers, your golfers, the Clarks, McDowells, McIlroys, etc., who've been on the top of the world. And but we never sort of take great pride in it. We always sort of wait for maybe somebody's demise to maybe sort of say, well, he was actually a good fighter, or he was a good golfer, he was a good snooker player, somebody like Alex Higgins. We've always sort of punched above, and it's a credit to people in Northern Ireland, because with the small population that we have who can compete or are going to, fit and able to go and compete, that we've always created, sporting memories, legends of the sports. Johnny Ray at the minute is a multiple world champion in motor racing. And again, it probably goes under the radar when you see some of these sporting events, when they're handing out
Personality awards,
sports personality. It's very rarely. I know Tony McCoy, I think he got nominated that number of years ago, but I think it took him 20 years of being dominant to actually get recognised of being how good he is. So
he won in 2010.
In Northern Ireland, sometimes Ireland as a whole, sometimes we sort of just we should sort of be so grateful and so happy for the amount of great people that have graced this the sporting public of Northern Ireland.
See, when you mentioned Danny Ray and McCoy, I think you could probably argue that they're a victim of their own success. They're winning constantly, and people are probably expecting them to win, and that's why they're not getting as much recognition.
And again, if you're sort of thinking, well, people might sort of think, well, they're only from Northern Ireland, maybe they're not as popular as.
Yeah.
And I say there's big sporting icons in the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, and whatever else. But again, when you look at it for what we have and the population and the size of the country that we have, we've certainly more than enjoyed our fair share with some great names there.
Yeah, 100%. And when I asked about your sporting peak, you didn't mention about you hold the record. I don't know if you still do. Maybe the record for the most goals in the European qualifier.
Yes. Again, I think that was 2006 to 2008. And again, when you hear sports people sort of talk that, the great ones, the Michael Jordans and the Tiger Woods, when they're in the zone and when they're in that sort of level where no matter what they do, they're going to win and they're going to get through to the next round, or they're going to, win a world championship, or they're going to win a match or whatever else. And for me, for Northern Ireland, when I turned up for 2 or 3 years, basically everything I did for Northern Ireland went in the back of the net.
Yeah.
But I also sort of go back to in and around 2002 to about 2004, 2005. Everything I hit was going over the bar, it was being deflected, the goalkeeper was saving. So again, sometimes to get to the enjoyable parts, the Spains and the English games, the wins, the Sweden games, we had to face as a team, and certainly me personally as a centre forward, there was tough, rough times along the. We couldn't beat Armenia, we couldn't beat a really poor Canada team at the time. We couldn't score a goal for 1,200 minutes. And again, it's probably well documented that our supporters, the Northern Ireland supporters, again, when we were, I think it was whatever game it was that we were playing, the Norway game, Laurie Sanchez just taken over. We hadn't scored for over 2 years. We hadn't scored for over 1,000 minutes. And they knew after about 6 minutes during the game, if we hadn't scored against Norway, that we were world champions of the divine. We were the worst team ever who hadn't scored a goal, and given sort of San Marino,
San Marino, Jesus.
San Marino, the Faroe Islands, who, slowly improving, except, not to be disrespectful to them, but we'd broken all records. And the supporters in the back end of the Cup started singing "Champion." You're sort of thinking, yes, funny way in a way that, but that's just the people of Northern Ireland. And say
it's our kind of humour.
It's our kind of humour, even though I'm on the pitch and I'm basically nearly sort of thinking, oh no, that means 6 or 7, because it was documented leading into by the journalists and the newspapers, if Northern Ireland don't score within a certain amount of time, we've broken probably about 1,000-year history of record of the worst team never scored a goal.
Oh, very good. So obviously, you're a young lad from Killyleagh.
Yeah.
Then you moved across the water for the United team. How did you find the mixture between sport and life balance, having to travel away from family and that there? Did that affect you?
It did, Paddy. And again, it's something that younger players now, some of the younger players who now go to England, Scotland, some of them even now go to sort of scholarships in America, whatever else. But when I went over sort of mid-90s, I always remember I moved in with 2 or 3 of the other boys in the digs. We had a landlady. We had one of the landlines. We didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have FaceTime. We didn't have Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So basically then, the modern day generation now are pretty fortunate if they, wherever they go in the world, if they're going backpacking, traveling, holidays, they still have a way of communicating. My way of communicating with sort of mum and dad or whatever at the time was basically reverse the charges in the payphone that we had in the digs, because you'd already run out of money probably during the week, and get your mum and dad to ring you maybe at the day. So again, it was difficult. Northern Ireland people, again, probably the majority of the younger players, because we grew up in such sort of tight-knit communities, tight-knit families. When we do eventually sort of fly the nest, it can be difficult, can be challenging. There's a high percentage of a lot of younger players in Northern Ireland, when they get to 16, they go to England, Scotland, they have their full-time dreams, there for them, but they go and they suffer because they can't sort of seem to settle maybe in a different environment, because they've been brought up in such a tight-knit family and a tight-knit community. So again, for me, difficult. It was challenging. A lot of times when you sort of think, you throw the head up, you sort of think, is it going to be worth it eventually? But after sort of you settle yourself down, maybe speak to your mum and dad, a realization of how many hours, how many years that you put into trying to get to your dream, fulfilling your dream. And it's certainly George Best. There was a program on about George Best last week. When he first went over to Man United, he got the boat back after 3-4 days and didn't want to be there. If George hadn't been back, there would have been no probably sign of the world superstar that George Best was. So challenging when you're young, and again, there's many. Certainly, I think there's probably many more obstacles now put in the way of younger players, with more quality players from abroad. When I was going over, it was England, Scotland, Wales, and whatever else that you were sort of competing against, guys from Dublin. But now you're competing against boys at 16 to 18 to 19. Some of these youth teams in the Premier League have boys from Argentina, Brazil, Spain, Portugal, the best young talent that the world has. So it would have been a lot more challenging had that been around when I was 15 or 16.
So what's next for you at the minute? Obviously, you're Linfield manager, so you are and I think it's the 30th of June, is it? They're making the decision in the league.
Paddy, if I knew that, I'd be quids in. I don't think anybody.
No one knows yet, but I think the FA are making a decision as a start at the minute, and if you're top, do you think you have it?
What do you think as a Cliftonville fan, Paddy? Would you like us to have it?
Certainly not.
Oh. Right.
That's a weird one. It's obviously it's out of everyone's hands. So
again, Paddy, like everything at the minute, that everybody has a vested interest in their own. It's basically their own sort of outcome and what way we finish it. Ideally, and we've been on record, and certainly I've sort of said that I think there was something in the press a couple of weeks ago. Healy demands league title. I was thinking, no, I wasn't demanding. If it wasn't going to be the case, we've earned the right that we're top of the league with 4 points clear. That doesn't mean that we're home and hose and we're definite winners. Hopefully there's going to be some sort of guidelines, solutions. Of course, we all want to finish the season in the best possible manner, but it has to be in the safest possible manner. That when we do return, that it's not just a case of, as much as I miss it and the players miss it and the supporters miss it, that we're not just coming back for the wrong reasons. If and when we can finish and it's going to be safe to do so, great. If it's not going to be finished, then the league and the clubs then need to sit down and come up with some sort of solution that's going to be it's not going to. No matter what decision is going to be made at the minute, it's not going to suit everybody. There's going to be disappointed parties, disappointed teams.
Yeah.
There's going to be happy teams, and it's trying to find the sort of happy medium along the way.
Yeah, of course. Like not everyone's going to be happy. That's a given.
No,
That's a given. But
not at the minute. But,
it is
but,
what it
but
is.
again, when you look at it, we played 31 games, which is over 80% of the season. So you don't really want to be. We certainly don't, as a club, and I certainly don't as a manager. You don't want to be sort of thinking, well, that's 31 games, 80% of the season wasted if there's not going to be at least an outcome come the end of it done on sporting merit and sport integrity.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been asked this before, but
You're worrying me now, Paddy.
No, it's not a bad question. Would you ever fancy the Northern Ireland job?
I think eventually, Paddy. You know, again for me, and I mentioned to you before that representing your country, no matter what sport you represent your country in, is the greatest honour.
Yeah.
As a participant like yourself, as a player, for me, that representing your country is hugely, you know, it's a boyhood dream. It's a kid's dream that you grow up and you put in the work and the effort. As a coach and as a manager, because you can't play, probably the next sort of step is, yeah, of course, maybe one day I would love to be involved in the setup. Michael O'Neill, again, had a good relationship with Michael, not only as a player, but even when he was a manager and I was sort of coach working in and around. I'd finished, I'd done a little bit of work for him. So
Yeah.
learning off somebody like Michael how he went about the international job, and again, Michael was a credit to not only himself but the the federation who employed him. That he wanted to do so much, he changed so much. A lot of younger players now coming through the club and I set up the under 18s, 19s, the 21 setups. Michael had a lot to do with that. He put things in place. He put protocols in place to make sure that if and when he was to leave, and obviously he's left this year, that going forward there was a structure in place for there was a pathway, and more importantly, a pathway for some of our younger players to be given the opportunity to go and play international football for Northern Ireland. So Michael will be a big miss. Would I want to manage Northern Ireland? Absolutely. One day. But again, I've got a big job at Linfield.
Yeah.
And, I've a good number of years to gain experience before maybe eventually that job would come around again.
You mentioned young players there. Is there any young players now at the minute who you think we should keep an eye on?
In Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one who I think he's 19, 20 probably now, Ethan Gilbreth, who's at Manchester United.
Yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
Young boy who went over, I think he played for 2 or 3 of the. He was in and around Linfield at one stage. He was Crusaders. I don't think Ethan was one of the players, but technically, I watch quite a bit of Man United TV. I see a lot of the youth games that he's sort of been involved in. Incredible young talent. I think he actually made his debut in one of the games there recently for Northern Ireland. And again, he's one of the younger players. Jamal Lewis at obviously Norwich has come in, young and fresh. Going down even younger than that, we have 1 or 2 of the players who will hopefully agree to go across the water this year to a couple of sort of championship clubs in Charlie Allen and Dale Taylor. I think Dale Taylor's Tigers Bay boy.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest he's playing for now.
I believe if Carl's told you he's signed for Forest, that's probably true then, Paddy.
Well, I hope it is, because if I had to edit it out.
No, but again, Dale, obviously Tigers Bay boy, knows Carl, knows in and around. Sort of Carl always sort of would ask me how's he doing and whatever else. And again, he has all the attributes to go on. He's 15. He scored against Cliftonville early in the season at County Antrim. Charlie Allen, and there's many other younger players who've been in and around other academies.
There's another player like mentioned, Kane Story.
I know Kane, yes.
Yeah, I was talking the other day, and he says that he would come back to Linfield in a heartbeat if he give him first team football.
Yes, Kane. To be honest, obviously, Kane's obviously part of the story sort of family network and
Yeah,
whatever else, and Jared, young
yeah,
Jared has gone to Portsmouth, and Kane's a young player that we really liked at Linfield. Obviously, he's moved now to Knockbreda, and I think
yeah,
probably for him, and fair play to him. It was a wee bit like me when I sort of go back that when I was a young player at Man United, that I was desperate to go and play in somebody's first team, even at 19, 20. Kane was a little bit younger than I think Kane's 18 or whatever else.
yeah.
Terrific young talent. Hopefully he goes well. And as I say, he's left with. We were disappointed when he left because of the ability he has, but I think in time, given a little bit of experience, maybe playing in the Championship and Knockbreda, there'll be a very good player in Kane.
Yeah, that's all he said. He really left so he can get first team football.
And fair,
Um,
fair play to him
yeah,
because again, some people want to sort of hang on until it's probably too late and probably miss the opportunity to go and get it. And Kane had that sort of hunger and a little bit of desire and a wee bit of belief in him to sort of
yeah.
think, right, I'm ready to go and play, and I'm going now. So fair play to him.
We're going to do the quick fire round now. So,
Right, yeah.
if you could choose a different sport, what would it be?
For me to play in or watch
Playing
golf.
golf. Who would you say is your greatest rival?
Greatest rival.
It can be past or present.
Players, I would go players that we play against. Um, Ferdinand, John Terry, centre halves that you would directly come up against
Yeah.
who, extremely talented and,
Great defenders.
great defenders who basically very rarely give you too much opportunity to scoring goals. The greatest rival, that's always hard. Probably, at the minute, probably greatest rivals for me is, the David Jeffrey, Stephen Baxter's,
Yeah.
Teams like Glentoran, although they've had various different managers at times, Paddy at Cliftonville, there's Oran at Coleraine. There's always been,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say rivalry, but there's always every time we sort of come up against each other. But there's
It's
also
great competition.
more important, as you say, is good competition now
Yeah.
between the setups and there's a good relationship between the majority. Yeah, we'll probably have a fallout every now and again on a Saturday afternoon, but
Yeah.
it's quickly forgotten about, come 5 o'clock and people are sort of shaking hands and
Yeah.
sort of wishing people well.
Do you have a pre-match superstition?
As a player, I did. As a player, I used to have, it was either, depending on whether it was a home game, I would have had sort of pasta bolognese. If it was an away game, we were in a hotel, used to have sort of chicken breast or, bolognese or whatever else. But I always finished off with a banana sandwich. But it wasn't even a sandwich, banana on toast with a little bit of sugar. Which I don't know, I think that's again, when you used to be a kid and you used to be in the back and your ma used to shout you, Paddy, your dinner's ready or your lunch is ready. Used to come in, there was like a jam piece or a banana piece. Eat
Yeah.
that as quickly as you can and get back out again. So I would, as a manager, again, this is, and a lot of managers probably do. People, when they get sort of superstitious about things. If I wear the same boxer shorts, socks, and we go to Solitude and we win, when we play the next game, either on a Tuesday or the following Saturday, I would always have to make sure that I wore the same socks or the same box, obviously washed.
I was going to say because obviously when you play Climble, you probably sold them.
Well, again, there's probably a few people in some of them stands maybe with soiled undies, funny, especially. but we, yes, more often than not, we've had decent results up at Solitude. So normally they're pretty clean, Paddy. But
Okay.
I would be scrambling around if it was a Saturday to Saturday game. I would be probably scrambling around on a Friday to make sure, had the same boxers on the week before, same socks and whatever else.
Brilliant.
Even if they've got a little bit of, just a wee bit of a hole or whatever in them, it's just up there. And
Yeah.
my wife would then, she would sort of realise, well, he wore them last week, I'll probably get them ready, and he'd probably stick them on again, which I do. So that goes through. You hope that goes on and carries on for a number of weeks, Paddy. Obviously, then when it changes, my routine, if I stopped and maybe got a paper on the Saturday morning with the same undies and the same socks on, the following Saturday or the Tuesday when we played again, I'd stop and get if I didn't stop and get a paper or stop and get a drink.
So the same kind of routine you need.
It's the same sort of mental routine. I'm sure you were probably the same.
Yeah, of course. Everyone has their own wee things. So they.
Yeah. Did you put? Obviously, footballers sometimes they put left foots on before right. Did you put any boxing gloves on first? Was there anything that?
Not really. No, I never had any superstitions, so to say. Like, I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
But I understand where you're coming from.
Aye, people have it. We used to joke, and there was a boy we used to play with at Leeds, and I never ever caught on. I used to see some of the boys. Paul Butler, he was a captain at Leeds, and some of the boys used to say, would he see what he does here? And I'm like, I was that sort of focused on my own sort of routines and worrying about whatever else. And it says, he always puts his flip-flop, he has his shorts, he has a t-shirt on, and he has his flip-flops on. But he had this watch. He had a Breitling watch at the time, and it was worth about 20 grand. Big, thick sort of watch. He never ever took it off until it got to 2:20. And the boys used to say, because 2:20 was basically for us, we used to go and sort of it was warm up time then. Us at Linfield now, I think we go out about 10 past, quarter past. Them days at Leeds, it used to be a case of 2:20. Guaranteed Paul Butler, still had his watch on, still had his flip-flop, everything else on. Bang, got to about 2, and the boys are sort of starting over, and I used to be watching and thinking, surely he's not going to do it. Bang, Breitling off, into the wash bag, top on, and away out and warm up. So basically, when you look at he had that planned to a T every single week.
Have you got a favourite quote or a favourite saying you stand by?
Favorite quote, Paddy? Probably there's. Sorry, somebody's going.
All right.
Somebody's banging on the door there, Paddy. Hope it's not Andy Johnson from Niffle looking some quotes off me. There's no iron team. It's actually. Go on, right. Sorry, Paddy.
You're all right.
Hang on there. You can edit that out there. Honestly. John Wooden, John Wooden?
Yeah.
The famous basketball.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you don't know him personally. John Wooden, famous basketball coach.
I was talking about John Wooden. Not John Wooden.
John Wooden, famous basketball coach in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s in America. Be more concerned with your character than with your reputation. Your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are.
Very good.
Again, I would read quite a lot of sort of American sort of the coaches' Lombardi rules. The Lombardi one about being late, and it was something that when Nigel Worthington was the manager at Northern Ireland, he always says, remember, when you're turning up somewhere, make sure it's Lombardi time. And we used to be like, Lombardi? What's he talking? Lombardi time is basically that you needed to be early and everything that, if he said you had to be down for pre-match at 1:15, he was basically mean be down for 1:10.
Yeah.
If you're meeting to go somewhere, you're leaving at 1 o'clock, be down at sort of 10 to 1, 5 to 1. So it was something that, again, some of the, the quotes that some of the managers, and that's something that always stuck by me with even with Nigel Worthington, that, timekeeping for a manager. Roy Keane he hated anybody being late. anybody with an excuse of being late. Didn't matter whether it was a pile up on a motorway, a pile up on the car park, your car broke down. There was no excuse for Roy when he was the manager that that anybody could even contemplate being late.
Have you got? Oh, sorry, not have you got. Who is your favorite sports person, past or present?
Again, I've always said as a footballer, for me, it's probably an easy one. Where again, I got to meet George Best very briefly. Pat Jennings, again, for me, and I've been in Pat. I'm sure anybody that's been in Northern Ireland, been in and around Q&As and some events and McDonald's events, and whatever else. Pat is an absolute living legend. He's a gentleman.
He is
played over 100 times, and I played golf with him. And again, for me, sometimes when personally I used to go to the airports and whatever, and used to bump into people who wanted a picture or an autograph or whatever. I played golf with Pat at Galgorm, and we were flying out the next day. We actually stayed over. There was a sort of a night out after the golf, sort of meet and greet and sort of dinner and stuff, raffles, prizes and whatever else. The next morning we got to Aldergrove, the airport, and I'd been known to get to the airport a little bit late, whatever else. Sometimes you're scrambling through.
Yeah.
So I travelled with Pat. Pat's fresh as a daisy. This is about 6:30 in the morning. We get to the airport and there's basically all sorts of flights flying out to Spain and sort of Portugal and around at the time. Normally people would say, they would spot me at the airport and want a picture and an autograph. I've never seen as many people when I went with Pat Jennings wanting Pat's.
Serious?
And this is something I'm sure people have said to you at the times. Here, Paddy, you get a picture with us, no worries. But also on the other hand, I'm sure people haven't sort of said to you, Paddy, you wouldn't take a picture with me and somebody else here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get that. Yeah.
So basically, I was taking.
You're the other person.
I was being the cameraman for Pat. He was being inundated, and from that day, I always sort of thought, you know what? Here's a man in his 70s, an absolute living legend, a hero to everybody in Northern Ireland. And I'm standing taking pictures of Pat with the supporter. I was sort of thinking, did they realise who I am here? But again, Pat had so many pictures, and I just thought at the time, what an absolute legend. Modern day, again, I love people, the younger sort of generation now, Rory McIlroy. I love to see people from Northern Ireland thriving, doing well, and
there's loads.
What they're doing, obviously, your mate Frampton.
Yeah.
And again, I had the incredible pleasure of walking out with Carl at Windsor when he fought the Australian geezer at Windsor. And the conditions and the weather and whatever was horrendous that night. And
tell you about David slip in the ring.
That's right. I was going to say, I seen you sliding by me. I was actually, I think you were being escorted by me at one stage.
Oh, probably in the hospital bed. Yeah, definitely. That was me. Free taxi home.
Not like you looking a free taxi home. But again, for me, Carl, not only for what he's achieved in the boxing ring, but probably again for Carl, he's it's difficult to unite anybody in Northern Ireland, Paddy, for generations or whatever else. And Carl, Rory McIlroy, the modern day sort of people like that, come from sort of different backgrounds, whatever else. But they've sort of the united country at times when they go and compete, and it doesn't really matter where people are from. People always get behind them. They want to see these guys doing well. So again, the modern day boys. Plus, you've known Carl, a long time. He's got a bubbly, like yourself. He's infectious on people. People like him.
Yeah.
People like to see people, with a little bit of character and a wee bit of personality. Again, boxers have that. Unfortunately, people like myself and footballers sometimes don't have that, Paddy. We don't have that infectious sort of infectious thing that people sometimes like.
Well, listen, there we go. David Healy, thanks very much for taking part on the podcast, and I wish you all the best in the coming months.
Paddy, no worries. I know I text you when you were obviously retired and whatever else, and say you've been a great ambassador for. I hope I'm not going to make you blush here, Paddy. I know you're, but again, listen, you've been a fantastic ambassador for not only boxing but Belfast, Northern Ireland, Ireland. You represent, and I know it's sent you a text message a number of months ago, basically congratulating you on the career that you had. So to say, but I did put at the bottom, you're more than welcome, Paddy. I know deep down you're a Linfield supporter, and you're more than welcome. At any time you're maybe bored on a Saturday afternoon, I'll come and put you in a wee box at Windsor, and we'll get you a wee scarf or whatever. All right.
No problem at all, mate. You take
right.
it, David.
Take it easy, Paddy.